Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Chloe Feng. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Paul Chen offers a $5,000 payout, but lowers the reduction for salaries tax. The Jockey Club takes a $12 billion hit, while smokers must pay more as the government seeks to raise revenue. And first-time homebuyers in the world's most expensive property market get some relief. Financial Secretary Paul Chen has announced a raft of measures to stimulate the flagging economy. But his seventh budget was a careful balancing act as he pared back on sweeteners and tax concessions to offset a record deficit. Chen has been facing enormous pressure to roll out more relief measures after the city's economy contracted by 3.5% last year. He announced a fourth consecutive year of handouts, but the consumption vouchers this time are just half the $10,000 doled out last year. And rebates will shrink for salaries and profits tax, as well as rates for homeowners. However, the government will spend generously on promotional campaigns to woo businesses and tourists. Chen also announced higher levies on football betting revenue and tobacco. Permanent residents can look forward to another $5,000 under the consumption voucher scheme. But there's a lower cap on tax cuts, while the only increase is in the basic and additional child allowance. Joanna Ho reports.
In unveiling the 2023-24 budget, Financial Secretary Paul Chen offered a package of milder sweeteners. This comes as the government seeks to replenish its coffers after digging deep to pay for the recovery from COVID. Permanent residents and new arrivals aged 18 and above will get $5,000 under the consumption voucher scheme, half the amount from last time.
Some of our citizens are still suffering a lot of financial stress. So perhaps we should also give a little helping hand. Taking into consideration of our fiscal situation, we decided $5,000 perhaps is the best we can do.
The first installment of $3,000 will be distributed in April and the remainder in the middle of the year. Those who come to study or live in the city through different admission schemes will receive $2,500. The scheme will cost the government no more than $33 billion, compared to over $66 billion in the current financial year. There will still be reductions for salaries and profits tax and tax under personal assessment for the current financial year, but they will be capped at $6,000, down from $10,000. Flat owners will get a rates concession of up to a maximum of $1,000 a quarter, but this will apply to only 2 quarters instead of 4. But there's an increase in the basic and additional child allowances, which go up by $10,000 to $130,000. Some sweeteners have been extended unchanged. The public transport fare subsidy scheme will continue for another 6 months, with a monthly expenses threshold capped at $200. Each household will receive a $1,000 electricity subsidy, and people on financial assistance will get an extra half-month's allowance. There was no mention in the budget this time on waivers for business registration fees and water and sewage charges for non-domestic households. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
The Jockey Club has expressed strong reservations after Paul Chen proposed that it pay a special football gambling duty of $2.4 billion each year for 5 years. In another bid to fill its coffers, the government has increased tobacco taxes with immediate effect.
In order to increase the government revenue,
我覺得佢負擔得嚟嘅。
Financial Secretary Paul Chen is imposing a levy on football gambling. The Hong Kong Jockey Club will be asked to pay $2.4 billion annually for 5 years, starting in the next financial year, while continuing its charity work.
We specifically asked, as I mentioned in the budget, The Jockey Club should not reduce its commitment, in other words, the donations, to the charitable organizations. They should keep it at that level, or even, if possible, enhance it. At the end of the day, football betting is not just something unique to Hong Kong. People can do it online. People can do it through the casinos, say, for example, in the neighboring cities.
The Jockey Club opposed the move and expressed its strong reservations on any increase in betting duty rates, which it said are already the highest in the world. It added that the levy would benefit only illegal and offshore betting operators. Despite Chen's request, the club warned that the tax would adversely impact its ability to contribute to the community on a sustainable basis, but pledged not to cut its donations to the community. Its donations amounted to $4.5 billion in 2021 to 2022. The extra duty will give the government $12 billion over 5 years.
我建議即時將每支香煙嘅煙草稅調高6毫子。
In a move that is widely expected to cheer the medical sector, Chen announced a 30% increase in the tobacco tax, raising the price of each cigarette by 60 cents. The proposal will provide the government with $1 billion in revenue each year, amid hopes that expensive cigarettes will encourage smokers to kick the habit. Chen said it's the first substantial increase in tobacco duty in a decade. The price of a packet of imported cigarettes, costing around $62, is expected to jump to at least $74.
Thousands of first-time homebuyers will benefit by an adjustment to the stamp duty rate. The move will cost the government nearly $2 billion, Maisie Mock reports.
Around 37,000 first-time homebuyers are expected to benefit from the change in the value bands for ad valorem stamp duty.
I have decided to make adjustments in this regard with a view to easing the burden on ordinary families of purchasing their first residential properties, particularly small and medium residential units.
The adjustment will apply to those buying homes that cost under $10 million. The ad valorem stamp duty varies according to the price of the flat. The stamp duty of $100 for homes worth up to $2 million has been extended to $3 million. Before the adjustment, the stamp duty for a $4 million flat would have been $90,000. But starting today, the tax has been lowered to $60,000, a drop of 33%. The government expects the change to cost around $1.9 billion a year, but other measures remain unchanged. In a move to stop the shrinking workforce, the government is urging companies to hire elderly people. Firms who do so will have their tax deduction for mandatory provident fund voluntary contributions doubled to 200%. Joyce Mack, chief executive of Ginkgo House, welcomed the proposal, but said the incentive is not enough. She said the government should provide firms with more subsidies to train the elderly. In its bid to protect the environment, there is more emphasis on electric transport. Taxi owners who switch to electric vehicles can benefit from a $6.4 million loan scheme. Each can borrow up to $350,000. Sources said the government hopes to launch the scheme, which will help 18,000 taxis make the switch in the middle of this year. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The financial secretary is determined to send a message to the world that Hong Kong is well on the road to recovery. He has earmarked $300 million for events to attract foreigners. Janice Low reports.
Hello from Hong Kong.
Less than 3 weeks after the government rolled out the Hello Hong Kong campaign to lure foreign tourists, another scheme has been launched.
Happy Hong Kong. 為咗讓市民
This time, the promotion is aimed at locals. It aims to boost local spending through a gourmet marketplace in various districts in the coming months, and a large-scale sea land carnival in Victoria Harbour this summer. Paul Chen noted that it is crucial for Hong Kong to recover from the aftermath of COVID. The government is setting aside $300 million for major events aimed at attracting foreign visitors. These include international meetings and tourism-related activities. The Tourism Board is also pitching in and will splash out $250 million on large-scale activities. These include high-profile events that bring economic benefits, such as the Rugby Sevens. Local high-end industries are also on the government's mind. It's looking into the feasibility of setting up an AI supercomputing center, which sources say will be helpful for analyzing weather conditions. About $15 million will be spent to boost the development of the Web3 ecosystem, which, according to sources, will allow youngsters to start new businesses. The financial chief said universities and research institutes will get $6 billion to set up life and health technology research centers. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Hong Kong's fiscal conditions worsened in the current financial year, with the deficit expected to reach almost $140 billion. But Paul Chen expects the economy to improve in the coming years.
Paul Chen admitted that the government's revenue and deficit are worse than expected, but pledged an improvement from next year. The property market downturn, rising global interest rates, and sluggish stock markets mean that the government missed its revenue targets for profits tax, land premiums, and stamp duty in the current financial year. Total revenue at $603.8 billion was 15% lower than estimated. Expenditure surged 17% from the previous year to $809.6 billion after heavy spending on the employment support scheme and other anti-epidemic measures. The deficit this year is expected to be $139.8 billion, the second largest ever and almost triple the original estimate of $56.3 billion. By the end of March, the fiscal reserves will shrink to $817.3 billion, the lowest level in 7 years. Chen expects a deficit of $54.4 billion in the coming financial year, but an improvement in the following years, with reserves rising to $983.7 billion by the end of March 2028. On the economy, Chen expects the 3.5% contraction last year to give way to robust growth of between 3.5% and 5.5%. But he also warned that recovery will generate inflationary pressures, with underlying inflation expected to reach 2.5% from 1.7% last year.
In the day's other news, an elderly woman has been killed by a falling iron rod in a freak industrial accident in Bangkok. The 63-year-old victim was struck on the head while walking in a wet market on Chen Wang Road at around 2 p.m. Reports suggested the 70-centimeter iron rod pierced the woman's skull. She lost consciousness and was certified dead in Kong Wang Hospital. Exterior renovation work was underway on the 11th floor of a nearby building at the time. Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden has again stressed that the Western alliance NATO will continue to support Ukraine. Speaking in Warsaw, Biden said Russian President Vladimir Putin had miscalculated when his forces invaded Ukraine.
One year into this war, Putin no longer doubts the strength of our coalition. Our support for Ukraine will not waver. NATO will not be divided, and we will not tire.
In Moscow, Putin denied that he's fighting the people of Ukraine. He said his war is against the Ukrainian government, which he accused of being a Western puppet. Putin also blamed the West for provoking the conflict. Also in Moscow, China's top diplomat Wang Yi and Nikolai Patrushev, head of national security, pledged to oppose what they called the Cold War mentality. A market correction and geopolitical tensions dragged Hong Kong stocks lower today. The Hang Seng Index closed down 0.5% as investors looked for signs of an economic recovery. A day after giving up 8.5%, JD.com tanked 3% as the e-commerce platform looked to focus on income growth, which could compromise profit margins. Alibaba continued its decline, finishing 2.4% lower amid concerns that its results tomorrow might not be encouraging. Tencent was down 1.6% on growing worries about regulatory risks and censorship on the mainland. And now let's take a look at the market. The Hang Seng Index closed down 105 points. Top 10 active stocks: Tencent down $5.80, Alibaba down $2.25, Tracker Found down 14 cents, and HSBC up $3.05. JD.com lost $5.70, and Ping An lost $1.75. Baidu up $2.40. Forex trading against Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.34, British pound at 9.49, and Australian dollar at 5.36. The UK market, the London FTSE, is currently down 72 points. And on to the weather now. It will be fine and dry tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 16 and 22 degrees. Similar conditions will prevail as we head into the weekend. And that's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Chloe Feng. Thanks for watching. Good night.